accommodated at 21 centres across the island to sit the Barbados Secondary School's entrance examination. This year marked a decline of 0.01% from 2018, or really some 39 fewer students. There were only 6 students who were registered to write the examination but were unable to do so due to medical reasons, and who after their recovery were assessed using the alternate paper. 42 students were deemed incapable of writing the examination and have been allocated to those institutions which presently cater to students with specific needs. For those students who may have had some form of impairment, disability, illness, or peculiar circumstance which may serve to disadvantage that student during writing the examination, the Ministry of Education accommodated those requests, and arrangements were made to allow students to be given additional time in large print or for permission to leave the examination room periodically. In keeping with international accommodation for the administration of exams, requests for a writer for 2 students and a reader for another student was granted. 105 requests were made for special consideration as compared to 121 in 2008, 85 requests in 2017, and 115 in 2016. Of the students who wrote the examination this year, 3,283, or 97.5%, were allocated to public secondary schools as compared to 3,418 in 2018, 3,216, or 93.5%, in 2017, and 3,527, or 93.1%, in 2016. Each year, a number of students are not allocated in the initial stage, primarily because parents made too few choices of schools. When this situation occurs, the students are placed at a significant disadvantage because they are then allocated to one of the few schools where spaces are then available. The raw scores in mathematics range from 0 to 100. This year, 35 students, 22 males and 13 females, scored full marks on the mathematics paper. This represents a significant increase from 10 students in 2018. And this year also, 6 male students scored 0 as compared to 0 students in 2018. The national mean in mathematics for 2019 is 61.58. This represents a slight decline of 0.88 from 2018, when it was 62.46. In 2017, the national mean was 55.0. Whereas there has been a marginal decline in the overall performance of males over the period 2018 to 2019, a small improvement has been observed in the overall performance of female students. Female performance increased by 0.37 to 65.63 from 65.26 in 2018 and 58.1 in 2017. The overall performance for males dipped by 1.85 from 59.73 in 2018 to 57.88 in 2019 and 51.8 in 2017. This decline in the students' overall performance in mathematics has been reflected in the number of public schools which perform above the national mean. In the past, it was observed that there has been a core of schools which are consistently among the top performing schools, and a corresponding group of schools that performs the complete opposite. This year has seen some disruption to the core, as there has been some upward and downward movement of schools within and out of the core. A few schools which consistently perform below the mean have made their way above the mean. Similarly, a few schools which normally perform above the mean have fallen below the mean. However, the fact remains that the majority of public schools, in total 42, have consistently scored below the national mean over the past 3 years, whereas the majority of private schools, 20, continue to perform above the national mean. I shall speak briefly to the comments of the mathematics paper in an effort to contextualize the performance of students. The mathematics paper is comprised of 55 items and is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 consists of 20 basic knowledge questions, the recall of mathematical facts items, each worth 1 mark. Section 2 is made up of 25 comprehension type items, each worth a total of 2 marks. Section 3 comprises 10 application type items which are designed to test the student's ability to apply knowledge and comprehension skills to solve real-life problems. Each item is worth 3 marks.
Over the past 3 years, students continue to demonstrate an average knowledge of basic mathematical concepts, with females performing marginally better than their male counterparts. Although the overall performance in Section 2 was above the 50% mark, there is still some cause for concern, as a number of the students have not demonstrated mastery of the comprehension skills.
The females, however, continue to demonstrate a higher level of understanding of basic mathematical concepts than males. Although there has been some improvement in the overall performance of students in Section 3, in 2019 over 2018 and 2017, the lack of mastery of comprehension skills in Section 2 still continues to impact on the performance in Section 3, where students are expected to read, analyze, and draw a conclusion from a unique situation. Students have still demonstrated that they experience extreme difficulty in applying knowledge and skills to new situations. It should be noted that in Sections 1 and 3, we have seen a constant increase in the number of schools performing above the national mean. However, in Section 2, there has been a slight decline in the number of public schools which perform above the national mean. With respect to the individual performance in mathematics, this year 35 students, 22 males and 13 females scored full marks on the mathematic paper as compared to 10 students in 2018, 7 males and 3 females as compared to 13 students, 4 males and 9 females in 2017. 35 students scored full marks in mathematics. I would not normally call out the names of all 35 students, but I do feel that this year's results are particularly exceptional, and I would not want to not mention the 35 students at this point, so I would ask you all to just bear with me. First on the list, I have Yusuf Abovat of Wesley Hall Jr., Kane Banfield of St. Angela's Primary, Azani Blades of Good Shepherd, Shaquan Blair, St. Albans Jr., Alira Chapman of West Terrace Primary, Malikwa Sherabin of St. George Primary, Loki Clark of Providence Elementary, Christian Cullimore of Trinity Academy, James Dixon, St. Angela's, Jaquan Eswick, Reynolds Weeks, Joshua Farley, Roland Edwards, Janie Blenman Ford of Christchurch Girls' School, Summer Franklin of St. Gabriel's, Espinoza Georges of Wills Primary, Nathan Gill of the Rock Christian School, Kyra Goodin of St. Paul's, Nathan Graves of Eden Lodge, Chaya Griffith of Charles F. Broome, Chris Hyland of St. Gabriel's, Zariah Hinson, Charles F. Broome, William Mackenzie of St. Winifred's, Abdur Rahman Manjira of Al-Falah, Jonathan McFarlane of Providence Elementary, Stefan Odell of St. Winifred's, Sidney Reed of St. Stephen's, Trey Skeffers of St. Patrick Roman Catholic School, Imani Small of St. Albans Jr., Brandon Squires of People's Cathedral, Taja Taylor of Christchurch Girls, Janika Walcott of Lawrence T. Gay Memorial, Gabrielle Watson, Welch's Primary, Danielle Wickham, Wills Private Primary School, James Williams, Blackman and Gollop, Micaiah Worrell, Ada Costa Edwards, Malia Learwood of Hinesbury School. A hearty congratulations to all of those students who performed exceptionally well by scoring 100 in the mathematics examination. A comparative analysis of this year's scores revealed the following. In 2019, 614 or 18.2% scored less than 30% as compared to 562 or 16.4% in 2018. In 2019 as well, 1,145 or 33.9% of the students scored between 30 and 69 as compared to 1,219 or 35.7% in 2018. Analysis of the performance of students in the range of 70 to 100 has been relatively consistent. This year, however, 1,617 or 47.9% of the students scored between 70 and 100 marks as compared to 1,636 or 47.9% in 2018. Although there has been a significant increase in the number of students scoring 100% in 2019 over 2018, the overall performance of students in the top percentile, 70 to 100, remained consistent at 47.9%. However, fewer students scored between 30 and 69, a decline which has resulted in a 1.8% increase in the number of students who scored below 30. This remains a major cause for concern. I'll now turn to the performance in the English examination. The raw scores in English range from 0 to 99. The overall national mean in English for this year is 65.74. This represents a decline by 3.7 when compared to the national mean of 69.44 in 2018. Further analysis of the data also shows that there has been marginal fluctuation in the overall performance of females over the past 3 years, whereas male performance continues to steadily decline. Analysis of this data also reveals that there has been some fluctuation in the number of public schools that have performed above the national mean in English over the past 3 years. In 2017, 22 public schools scored above the national mean as compared to 27 schools in 2018 and 25 in 2019. This highlights the fact that the majority of public schools have consistently scored below the national mean over the past 3 years. Data for the private schools reveal that 21 private schools scored above the national mean for English, while only 8 scored below for this year. Further inspection shows that in 2018 as well as in 2019, 19 scored above the mean and 6 and 5 respectively scored below the mean. Thus, it can be noted that the majority of private schools have scored above the national mean over the last 3 years. The English paper comprises of sections A and B, with 85 items in total. Section A assesses grammar, vocabulary, and comprehension, and accounts for 70 of the 85 items. Each item is awarded 1 mark each. Section B consists of 2 comprehension passages which assess the ability of candidates to comprehend expository text through the use of open-ended short answer questions. This section comprises the 15 remaining items which are awarded 2 marks each. This year, the mean for Section A was 54.27 as compared to 55.37 in 2018 and 57.70 in 2017. This represents a slight decrease in the mean score of 1.1 when compared to the 2018 average. Moreover, over this 3-year period, there has been a decline in both male and female performance on Section A of the paper, with the highest mean scores recorded in 2017, which recorded 55.1 for males and 60.3 for females. With respect to Section B, the mean for Section B in 2019 has been 11.53 as compared to 14.22 in 2018 and 12.7 in 2017. This year's mean score represents a decrease of 2.69 from the mean in 2018. Once again, the performance of both males and females on Section B of the paper has fluctuated over the 3-year period, with the highest mean scores recorded in 2018, 13.38 for males and 15.07 for females. In both sections A and B, female students consistently outperformed their male counterparts during the 3-year period under review. The distribution of scores in 2019 when compared to scores in 2018 revealed the following. 282, or approximately 8.3% of the students, scored less than 30% in 2019 as compared to 216, or approximately 6.7% of students in 2018. 1,300, or approximately 38.5% of students, scored in the mid-range between 30 and 69% as compared to 1,093, or 32% of students in 2018. 1,797, or approximately 53.2% of the students, scored in the higher range between 70 to 100% as compared to 2,109, or 61.7% of students in 2018. This year, 11 candidates earned the distinction of being named among the top performers in English. From this list, it should be noted that only 8 of the top performers are from private primary schools and the remaining 3 are from the public primary schools. The top performers in English are as follows. Topping the list is the Belleville Grammar School, the candidate being Cheyenne Gibbons with a raw score of 99. Next is Addison Batstone of the St. Winifred School with a score of 97. Adriel Bard of St. Gabriel's scored 97. Brandon Squires of People's Cathedral scored 97. Jade Cole, Vauxhall Primary, 96. Joshua Connell of St. Gabriel's, 96. Nayla Mon of Wills Private Primary scored 96 as well. Anaya Moore of Roland Edwards, 96. Micah Moore of Bay Primary, 96. Ariel Thompson of Trinity Academy, 96. And Danielle Wickham of Wills Private Primary, 96. In this year's examination, the top performers by gender is Adriel Bard of the St. Gabriel's School, who scored 99 as his raw score in maths and 97 in English. Sorry, the female, top female. And the top male is Brandon Squires of the People's Cathedral, who scored 100 in the mathematics and 97 in English. Brandon will be attending the Queen's College Secondary School, and Adriel Bard will be attending Harrison College. The top performers overall in this year's examination are as follows. Brandon Squires of People's Cathedral, 242.96. He received an A, and he will be attending the Queen's College Secondary. Adriel Bard of St. Gabriel's, 242.43, will be attending Harrison College. Danielle Wickham of Wills Private Primary, 242.24, will be attending Queen's College. Joshua Connell of St. Gabriel's, 241.71, will be attending Harrison College. Janika Walcott, who attended the Lawrence T. Gay, will be attending Queen's College, and she scored 241.52. Zariah Hinson of Charles F. Broome, 241.52, will be attending Harrison College. Cheyenne Gibbons of Belleville Grammar scored 241.23, will be attending Harrison College. Ariel Thompson of Trinity Academy, 241.18, Queen's College. And Ariane Blades, Christchurch Girls, 240.99, will be attending Queen's College. Zahara Diag, Good Shepherd, 240.99, will be attending Harrison College. And Charlie Collins, who was homeschooled, scored 240.99, will be attending the St. Michael's School. I'll now turn to the early sitters for this year's examination. According to the Education Act, an early sitter is any student that is younger than 11 years in the year of the examination. Such students may qualify to write the examination if they satisfy the stipulated criteria. As stated in the Act, any student who is desirous of writing the examination early must be scoring not less than 85% in both language, arts, and mathematics in Class 2 and 3. In 2019, requests were made for 14 students to write the examination early, as compared to 13 students in 2018. Of the 14 requests made this year, only 3 met the stated criteria and were granted permission to write the examination. Analysis of the results for the early sitters indicated that of the 3 students who wrote the examination early, 2 scored above 90% in both subjects, 2 scored 100% in mathematics only, and 1 scored below 90% in both subjects. Those students' names are as follows. Janae Blenman Ford of the Christchurch Girls, who will be attending Queen's College, scored 240.79. David Humphrey of the St. Cyprian School scored 229.17 and will be attending the Christchurch Foundation School. Danielle Wickham of Wills Private Primary scored 242.24 and will be attending the Queen's College School. With respect to deferrals for this year, a parent usually is able to request a deferral for 1 year if, in the opinion of the school, he or she will benefit from another additional year. The student must have been consistently scoring below 20% in both mathematics and language arts, or did not complete a significant portion of the syllabus. Candidates meeting the necessary criteria may be granted a deferral. This year's requests were made on behalf of 103 students to defer writing the Common Entrance exam. Of these, 28 were Class 4 students and 75 were Class 3 students. Of the Class 4 students, 16 were granted permission to defer, while all of the Class 3 were deferred until 2020. This morning's report provides statistics on the performance of all of the candidates who completed this year's 2019 Barbados Secondary School Entrance Examination from both the public and the private schools. The information derived from analysis of this data will be used by the Ministry of Education to identify areas of conceptual strengths and weaknesses across the system. Programs utilizing new, innovative, and research-based approaches must be introduced to strengthen and consolidate the delivery of instruction. An analysis of student performance in mathematics paper has revealed that there continues to be a need for this, as concern over too many students having demonstrated that they have not attained mastery of basic mathematical concepts has become apparent. A vast majority of the students continue to demonstrate their inability to apply knowledge and skill to solve real problems in section 3 of the paper, and females continue to demonstrate a higher level of understanding of basic mathematical concepts over males. It is therefore pertinent to identify the influence of the teacher-student relationship on student performance in mathematics. Determining the nature of the school environment where teaching is practiced and examining the influence of school management on teaching and learning of mathematics is also of equal importance. Greater emphasis needs to be placed on the enhancement of the quality of instruction, as well as providing the tools and resources to teachers to deliver differentiated instruction based on the student needs. Equally, an investigation of those schools which perform consistently at a high level may also reveal useful data that can be shared across the system. Analysis of student performance on the English paper suggests that while students are improving in their understanding of discrete grammatical and vocabulary concepts in Section A, more students are struggling in the free response section of the paper, commonly known as Section B. For the past 3 years, it has been noted that a high percentage of students continue to score only 1 mark on the free response items in Section B of the paper instead of the full 2 marks that are allocated. This suggests that students have a general understanding of the content of the text, but are not answering the question in a grammatically correct answer and manner. Greater emphasis needs to be placed on developing students' use of the functional grammar. This can be done by incorporating more opportunities for oral expression in the classroom through meaningful discussions, oral presentations, interviews, and questioning, amongst other things. I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the staff of the Ministry of Education to congratulate not only the persons who I've identified in terms of the students who have performed exceptionally well, but all students who have worked very hard over the course of the last few years, because common entrance doesn't only require you to work hard in fourth form, but it certainly requires a number of years leading up to the eventual examination. And I think that kudos go out to all of the students who have worked hard, who have performed above what the expectations may have been for them, as well as those who have performed, and surpassed expectations over the course of the last year. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the teachers in the system who have also, with very difficult resources and certainly a lot of issues in terms of environmental problems as well, worked really hard to ensure that they got the best out of their students. And I know that while we are speaking to those who are top performers, there's persons who have had to work, particularly hard with students to be able to get them to this stage where they can sit this examination. So I want to commend them as well. I think today is also a day where parents are perhaps a bit relieved, particularly those who have worked with their students and at home and have been able to burn the midnight oil, who have found it very difficult, no doubt, to be able to have to pay for extra lessons and to also work along with them to master some of the concepts of modern day education. And I want to commend them for the support that they have given to their students. I also would like them to recognize that the work does not end after common entrance, but this is really now the beginning of another period in the journey of a student's life, to be able to now build on not just the age of 11, but certainly to build on everything that has been learned up until this point, and to be able to hone their skills moving forward for being productive citizens of this country. So I would want to thank all who have played a part in making this exercise possible. I know that the next few weeks the Ministry of Education will no doubt be bombarded by several requests for transfers, as has been done in the past. My position this year is the same as it was last year. Only in extenuating circumstances will we be entertaining the request for transfers. I take the position that the school does not define the young person, and the conversation that we must continue to have is one where we have to instill in persons that it is really not the school, it is what you do at the school that is going to matter. And until we are able to get to a point where all of us are singing from the same hymn sheet, then Mr. Price will be bombarded with the requests in exams, and I will certainly be requested as well to make those decisions. But I stand firm that the school does not define the young person, and I encourage young people to not be drawn into that conversation about which school you've gone to and which school you haven't gone to, but rather to be able to apply yourself when you enter the new school, and certainly for teachers as well to give as much support as they can to students, because so many things can happen on the day. You may have been sick, you may, you may have lost a parent. Difficult things can happen on that day, and I don't think that one day should be allowed to define someone's, life. And I think that we have to keep echoing those sentiments across the country until people realize that what may have obtained previously has not necessarily been the best thing for a number of students. So I don't want students to feel as though they are failures, but rather that as we try to create a certain equality across schools, that students can go into school feeling confident that they're getting the best level of education and the best level of support that is required for them to do the best that they can do. So I just want to open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Based on what you said, sorry, I can hear you.
Sure, hi, thanks, I can.
At the end, you stated that you don't want children to feel that if the common entry is obviously a test, and if you don't get any higher percentile or percentage, you will feel obviously disadvantaged or discouraged. With that said, moving forward, how does the ministry plan to address
that issue? Okay, a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister would have indicated that I was returning to the island to start the discussions with all of the stakeholders with respect to this issue of the common entrance examination. I have spoken repeatedly about it myself in relation to things that I have discovered, certainly on coming to the ministry, in relation to the types of assessments prior to the examination, which were in dire need of improvement. And I believe if we can start the process of looking at those tests where we can certainly put in place systems to be able to help our students, we are then going to be in a position to be able to evaluate how we move forward with secondary school. Now, we have started some internal discussions within the ministry. Thanks for the technology, because I've been able to do that from this conference room with all of my staff. We've even extended the discussions to the TVET Council. As you know, they fall within the Ministry of Education presently. And we've been able to start the discourse internally. Of course, over the course of the next few weeks, I will be starting discussions with the wider stakeholders so that we can deepen those discussions and be able to get feedback, not just locally, but I believe a lot of experience is to be found regionally, but also internationally as well. I would also make the call to Barbadians living abroad who have been exposed to this area in terms of reforming an education system to really make yourselves known as well, because I think we forget sometimes that we have a wealth of knowledge overseas in diaspora, and I think that we need to be able to tap into the resources that are available to us as well. As someone who has come through free education, had the benefit of what I consider to be a sound education system. I went through the same common entrance exam. I must tell you that while there are many strengths of what I would have come through, and many of us in this room would have come through, and many listening, I do think that the statistics are clearly showing us that there is need for reform. A number of the students who are performing below average could perhaps have done with better assessments from an earlier age, having been identified both by the teachers as well as principals to be able to alert us as to some of the challenges students have been having. I think that it points to the fact that we need to test not just on maths and English, but to look at more well-rounded students. I mean, if you bring any child in this room presently, you will find that the child doesn't even need to go to an instructional manual to do most things. Children somehow, it's almost as if they're born with the ability to be able to take technology and figure out how it works. We have to now be able, as a as a generation to be able to equip ourselves with the education that we've had in terms of our foundation to build on that, but to be able to provide a platform for the generation that is to come. They don't think or act with the knowledge that we do. And I think that we have to lay the platform for the generation that is to come by being able to pull on all of the necessary information and best practices of systems across the world to be able to devise something that is going to work for our next generation of students coming through the system.
The next thing I heard Barbados today, is there or you could generally feeling about this year's results?
I feel confident that our students have been working hard and our teachers have been doing the best that they can with what has been made available to them. Do I believe that we have gotten the best spend in education from all angles? No, I don't. I think that there are some things that need to be strengthened, and it is my intention to ensure that those things are strengthened in terms of our best practices, whether it is in relation to providing the adequate resources that are needed to our schools, whether it is in terms of ensuring that we get back to assessing students at the earliest age so that we can have the appropriate interventions that are necessary. A lot of things that are manifesting themselves in the system in relation to these results we could have captured if we had been doing the diagnostic testing a lot earlier, and if we had been ensuring that teachers were trained to be able to also assisting them in the classroom in dealing with the myriad of problems that children are dealing with. There was a time when we used to think that children were just harders. That was a common phrase. We used to say the child isn't behaving, the child is indisciplined. And now we've come as a generation to recognize that there are various things across the spectrum where there are diagnoses for various conditions. So the child might have attention deficit, they may have trouble with, the dyslexia. There are a number of things that we can now tag to behavior that I think as an educated population we now have to ensure that our teachers are equipped with the tools to be able to deal with what we are seeing. We also need to perhaps revisit the issue of specialist teachers at the primary level. I think that is what is manifesting itself in relation to maths and English. I came to the ministry and the chief and I have had long conversations about this, about the issue of generalist teachers at primary school, and I do feel that the results are showing us that we need to have more specialist training at the primary level and not wait until students are in secondary to receive that level of instruction. I think the results also are showing us that in relation to the special cases where persons have applied for additional time or for larger print, for accommodations to be made, that we as a society we have to recognize differences, and we have to recognize that all students do not perform at the same level, and equally they don't learn in the same way. So our focus now has to be on differentiated instruction. It also has to be on making accommodations to help people to learn, whether that's in the classroom, out of the classroom. It also speaks to the fact that we need to make learning more practical. We need to let our students enjoy going to school. So quite apart from the heavy investment we've been trying to make in ensuring that the school plant is in a condition that is satisfactory to both teachers and students, we have to basically ensure that we equip them with the tools that are necessary to do the job. We have been trying to apply resources to ensuring that the technology, for instance, that schools have Wi-Fi across the school instead of in specific areas, to ensure that technology can be the driving force, not just for teachers, but also for students as well. So again, there are things that the results are saying to us, and I think now, we don't need to be talking anymore about what the results are saying, but I think we have to now put in place some action points to be able to address a number of the deficiencies we've been seeing in the system. In terms of strengths, I think it is significant that we have so many students who have done well in mathematics. I think that is to the credit of a number of the hardworking teachers. I think that the areas which have been highlighted in terms of being able to grasp some of the mathematical concepts is the one that we have to bear in mind in terms of how we are teaching mathematics. I think we have to bear in mind as well that boys may not necessarily be grasping the concepts in the same way as girls, and I would hope that coming out of this exercise that we share the results with the principals certainly, but also engage in discussion which allows them to plan moving forward how to be able to deliver instruction to our students as well.
Rachel, you mentioned also coming out of a lot of the discussion that has been going around in terms of the common entrance exam itself.
Mhm.
There are those who are calling for a broader exam and not just the math and the English, because you may have a child who may not be academically inclined, but more gifted with their hands. Do you think it will come to a point where as we see specializations in school, if I can call it that, so that if my child is more gifted with their hands as opposed to academics, that we not sideline that gifted child and push them to want to do academics, which technically will not benefit them at the end?
Correct. Yeah, I think there's a foundation always for maths and English in schools, and I don't think we can ever really replace that, because in whatever you intend to do, you need to have a basic understanding of, you know, even if it is basic skills of mathematics and English. But what I do agree with you on is that we have to move in a direction where we have more specialist schools, and I would hope that the private sector as well can respond to that call as well for having specializations. We've been in serious discussions with TVET Council in relation to technical and vocational training being more prevalent within the school system. We've been in discussions with persons regarding the cultural industries, creative end as well. And so I think that we recognize as a ministry that the traditional curriculum is not working for the benefit of a number of students, and this needs to be certainly relooked in terms of what we are teaching, but also to be able to ensure that students don't have to wait until they finish school in order to take advantage of being able to learn, you know, any of the other areas that are non-traditional as well.
Okay, thanks, Walter.
Yes, generalization probably. Obviously, we would see that the majority of the top schools went to private schools.
Yes.
And you mentioned over the past 3 years, you gave that analysis. But what have we how do we analyze that to find out what is when they're here?
I think that it is very telling that the private schools are excelling. I think that there are some lessons to be learned from the way in which instruction is obviously being delivered. I think it is a conversation. I don't think in the past the private schools have been engaged in that type of way within the ministry. But it is certainly the chief again and I have often had these conversations about you know, why are certain things happening in private school that are not happening within our traditional public school system? And if there are things that we can perhaps look to introduce. Now, one of the biggest challenges, I suppose, is that the existing system in terms of our teachers and the system which surrounds them in terms of the civil service is one that is plagued with a number of a lot of bureaucracy. And therefore, to be able to engage in a meaningful course of reform, it is going to still take time to be able to get that right. But there's a big difference between a teacher who is being paid a salary and therefore must ensure that their students perform and do well and to find different ways to teach that child versus and certainly that school may have the resources both financial and otherwise versus some of our schools which have had very good teachers but have been plagued with difficulties in terms of resources. And so these are some of the realities that we are facing. It doesn't make private school better than public school, but I think what it says to us is that we have to deepen or call certainly to be able to ensure that greater resources are applied in the right way in the public education system. Because failing to do that is going to continue to result in us not being able to get the best spend for money. We have to also be able to address issues of absenteeism in the system. That is something that, I mean, most of us around the room know we've had our challenges with, whereas in a private school, that is addressed very quickly. There's process that takes place with the bureaucracy within the current public service that sometimes creates challenges for us to discipline and to deal with persons within the system who may not be fulfilling their functions to our students. That said, you know, there are obviously the scenarios where you have teachers who are trying to do their best, but then they don't have the Wi-Fi connectivity, or they may not have the correct resources to be able to do what they're supposed to do, or they may not have the cooperation of the staffing to be able to work with students and to be able to pull them out. These are things, I think it is a top-down approach. I think we have to start within the ministry to encourage our principals to work more with the teachers and our teachers to work more with the principals. We also have to look at strengthening the relationship with parents as well. There are a number of our schools that do not have active PTA associations. Again, I continue to make the call for parents to get more involved in student life. You will find at private school, parents are an integral part of the child's activities. Private schools are always calling upon you to participate in something. Now, the reality is in public school, a lot of these socioeconomic problems are being faced by parents, and they may not be able to participate fully in those types of activities. So it means that the government has a bigger responsibility to be able to put those resources in to help them. So there is some disparity, but I think once we get the adequate training, right, for our teachers, we get the adequate resources into the schools, we create the right environment, and we have good leadership, I think those 4 qualities in terms of an emphasis is where right now we have to really put the thrust. The great thing is that we have done tremendous work over the years in terms of the Untitled Training College, equipping teachers with the necessary skills to be able to do the job. But right nowadays, we are also seeing that teachers are being confronted in the public system with issues of fighting and bullying, and we have students coming from communities where they are bringing some of the bad habits into the school system, and it is creating numerous problems for our teachers. These are things now where the ministry previously may not have been focused on counseling teachers or equipping them with the tools to deal with those kind of issues, but all of those things help to give us a more holistic approach to teaching, because you have to equip the people who are dealing with these students in a proper way to be able to do the job. It is no longer just about educating the child about maths and English, but you have to look at the holistic student and being able to provide different layers to provide intervention for the teachers to be able to do their job as well. So it is definitely worrying, but I am confident that when we start the discussions, not just with the unions, but also with the teachers directly, and certainly with the parents as well, that we can get everyone on the same page. Everybody has to pull their weight right now. This is not about pointing fingers in any one direction and saying public is not doing as well as private. But I think there are some harsh realities we must face, and we must be able to address those issues and speak to them with a view to making recommendations for the changes that must come. So any other questions? No? Sure. Go ahead.
Because I know we made this push for tablets and everything in school. I think some people might say there's a correlation to using tablets and reasoning skills actually being or not being able to use your reasoning skills. I don't know if you can speak to that. Can we assess how the use of technology may actually be doing what we don't want it to do?
I think technology is a good and a bad thing at times, and I think a lot has to do with making sure that the teachers are also equipped, as well as parents, to know the good things to use a tablet for, to use the devices for. That therefore requires, and again, we are having some discussions with Erdiston about it shortly, in relation to preparing teachers in the classroom to use the technology that is available to get the best out of students, and then obviously be able to assess to see how those students are learning. But the reality is students learn quickly. You give them a smartphone there or a tablet, they're going to be able to figure it out faster than you can put it in a manual. And we have to be able to change the style of teaching as well nowadays to be able to accommodate that type of student. The student sometimes can tell you more about the tablet and how it works and about the programs than you, the teacher, is able and equipped to deal with. Equally, we have to encourage teachers to use the technology, whether it is the email accounts that have been set up by the ministry, to be able to utilize the functioning of these systems to be able to improve the classroom learning experience as well. I've been reading some stuff recently. Overseas, there's less time being spent even in the classroom, but more in terms of giving students a more practical understanding of life and more, making a more well-rounded student. I think those are things that we obviously have to look at in terms of best practices and be able to work with the teachers and certainly the principals to get the best out of the current system. Sure.
We had one student who did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was a big debate about that.
I don't think I was involved in that debate. I support I support any form of education which is going to make a student more well-rounded. Everything is not for everybody, and I think people have to be given the freedom of choice if they want to have their charges, being engaged in mainstream schooling, or whether they wish another form of schooling. So I certainly encourage the notion that homeschooling has a role to play within the system. What I feel that the Ministry of Education must take very seriously, however, is the oversight, is in ensuring that we have oversight over what is transpiring in the school environment so that no child is equally disadvantaged. But I believe it was last year, one of the students who had received the scholarship, I think it was from the People's Republic of China as well, was also homeschooled. And so we're seeing more and more students who are going through homeschooling actually appearing on the radar in terms of doing exceptionally well. And I commend those who have been a part of that process and certainly encourage it. But our role as the ministry is to ensure that we are notified of those students who are being homeschooled, and that obviously certain basic things are still taught, even if there's a deviation from the regular curriculum. Cool. All right, I want to thank you all for attending this morning, and I really do appreciate the keen interest in another year's examination. I again want to just commend all parents, students, and certainly the teachers within the schools, and certainly the ministry staff who've been able to facilitate this process. And just remind you, transfers are the exception and not the norm. And continue to encourage the students to do well as they go on to journey into secondary school as well. All right. Thank you.